Okay, the Megadraft is in the books. We followed Miranda drafting her way into a green-black mid-range to reanimator type of deck with a bunch of big idiots and back for mores. And we're gonna start with her. We're gonna go in passing order. We're gonna start with her neighbor to her left, Jordan, and take a look at the decks that other players have drafted. So Jordan, we knew, was in blue-red more or less the whole way through. It looks like there's a couple white cards in here, but I can't imagine they stand much of a chance of making the deck. And this just looks like a pretty straight up spells deck. So let's see what he's got in the way of spells payoffs. Anything jump out to you?
I mean, definitely the Iconoclast is a huge payoff.
Chrome Prowler playing at
And
instant speed. Oh, here we go. The 3 drops. Ooh.
Double Weird and the Wolverine.
The Drake Haven is cute with the 2 Tormenting Voices as well as a couple cycling cards. The Axiom Engravers to repeatably pitch and make a Drake. Like, I wonder.
Right?
Amonkhet, as I recall, was reasonably early in the draft order. Let me actually just check on that.
It seemed to be about the halfway point.
Yeah. Oh no, sorry.
And
Never mind. It was the sixth.
third from last.
Yeah. So maybe he just sort of. It is a powerful card and can do some gross things. So maybe it'll make the deck. Maybe not. We'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, Seeker of Insight, I believe, also discards. And then there's Stern Lesson
Which
as a
one's Seeker
discard
of
in it as
Insight?
well. 2-drop.
I
Uh,
see. It's like this, but
yeah,
not as good. I would say
yeah.
there's some good synergy stuff here, but it feels a bit flimsy to me. Like your creature slots outside of this Iron Tread Crusher and these resistant Skywardens, everything's got 2 toughness or less. Like you're not going to be able to like if you just need a blocker, because they're attacking you with a bunch of 2/2s. What can this deck really offer? And the answer
Hmm.
out of this main board is not all that much until you get to like Akhelden Ritter or these 5 drops here. So this deck is really going to rely on getting ahead, staying ahead, and countering or bouncing anything too big. It's going to be playing on a very thin margin, and it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. That said,
Yeah.
there's some good cards in the sideboard here, like the Gitu Chronicler might make it in. What else is there? Third Pass Savant, if you think it's slow enough, Negate is powerful against another spell deck. Two-Headed Giant's a good card. I would surprised to find that in the sideboard.
Pyroceratops.
Pyroceratops, yeah. Okay, we'll see. This will be an interesting deck to see how it plays out. Like, because it's definitely very synergistic, but it could have some bad matchups, I think. Let's move on to Paul, the other green-black drafter at the table. So yeah, here's the Nethroi we were talking about here. Whenever this creature mutates, return any number of target cards with total power 10 or less. You don't even need planes to mutate it, a detail I forgot at the time. You do need planes to cast Shalai, which is a powerful card, and you need 2 planes to cast White Sun's Twilight, which is a card I did not notice until just now. Man, that's looks like Paul is drafting more in the spirit of my commentary, where he's got a bunch of rares like Key to the City and White Sun's Twilight, which and honorary rare and Deathbloom Ritualist, which might be tricky to make work, but which are certainly powerful, like this Vivian as well. I would put in that distinction.
Yeah. He's got definitely, it seems like it's green black base with a lot of ability to splash for white, a lot of fixing. And it's
Yeah.
quite interesting. There's a decent number of rares. Yahenni's here, Shalai's here, Vivian, Casandu Mammoth, Sylvan Awakening. It really seems like a lot was opened or a lot was passed that was perfectly playable.
So that might be where the difference in priorities came from, as Paul is sort of looking at his green cards as a way to play, as a way to splash, as a way to play, off-color rares like White Sun's Twilight, Shalai, and Nethroi. And Miranda was looking at her green cards as a way to ramp out big boys and put them onto the field. And those are very much, 2 of the core identities of green, which maybe led to, some of the differences in prioritization, which we saw.
Right. And what did you say that Paul started off at? What was his path? What was his initial?
Well, he had a bunch of green and blue and red cards he picked up early on. Like, you know, there's these red cards from Bro, blue cards from Ikoria. If we go to his picks, let's pick summary. Oh wow, this is a great view. Yeah, we can see he doesn't take his first black card until like
he starts getting convinced by Nethroy, I think.
Deathbloom Ritualist making him pick 10 is maybe a thing. Yeah, it takes a long time for him to settle Fartway into green-black. Like, I just found this view. I love this view. This view's great.
Yeah.
I'm going to show this for everybody then. Yes, so sorry. This is Paul's journey through the draft. White Since Twilight looks like put him back into white later on. You know, he kind of followed up with some white cards here. That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
We should probably start with the just like their general pool first, and then go to the pick summary if we want to see their path.
Yeah. So let's go to Pigeon, who, if we go back to his deck, you know what? Someone had to play green-white creatures, and it looks like Pigeon's found himself in that seat. And he's got some good creatures. He's got, on the top end, Tyrannax Rex, 8/8, Trample, Ward 4, Haste, Uncounterable, Toxic 4. That's a lot of good words on a card. Sifter Worm. Not quite Palaka Worm, but I wouldn't say almost as good either. It's no Palaka Worm, but it's still a good worm. What else jumps out here? Hatmaster Liger. Oh, that's a good go wide enabler for sure. With the one of Legion Angel looking kind of sad. He's got a couple of mutators. Pima Outrider, sure. Scrapper Cohort, sure. The Sorin is powerful. That's the one that reanimates.
He loves Sorin. I believe he had Sorin in one of his weeks, playing like green, black, white.
I like the On Sarah's Wings. I'm sort of expecting to see a lot of things which make more than one body, potentially. The Crystalline Giant is a great card. This card, its text box actually lies. Whenever it's under your control, you get, it goes like Reach, then Trample, and then Menace. And whenever it's under your opponent's control, it goes Hexproof, Flying, Lifelink, Vigilance in that order. So it's actually not random whatsoever.
Just depending on who's playing it, you or your opponent.
Yeah. Oh, we got a good amount of flyers here. That's a way to kill
people. Keensight Mentor has some play with the Farfinder and Kahira.
Yeah.
Does Kahira give Vigilance to everything?
No. It just pumps some
right?
creatures. I'm sure he's going to do like the check in Arena to see how many of each type he has. I don't know if it will be enough. He's got a bunch of good...
Mirren Bardiche gives Vigilance.
Sorry?
And so does On Sarah's Wing. And he has enchantment and equipment that give Vigilance.
Not Jousting Lance. Which one are you looking
at? The Mirren Bardiche 5-drop from Phyrexia All Will Be One. So we could potentially see some big boards growing up from these small creatures that we see.
He's got a bunch of situational cards too, so his sideboard could be fairly rich. Lay Down Arms, great card. Swords at Home, quite handy. Ivy Elemental. Yeah. That said, this sort of deck, I think, sort of has a ceiling on how good it can be. Like you're really relying on curving people out, just because green-white creatures kind of do what they say on the can. They're not like gonna go above and beyond and shock you by doing something you don't expect most of the time. So we'll see how.
Correct.
I think like maybe the one thing that could come out of nowhere and steal a game is like you mutate something and then you mutate Ligeron and pump your team to +2/+2. But even that's a bit thin. On Sarah's Wings on a hexproof Crystalline Giant, that could steal a game. So there's a couple things that could do it. If Tyranneth Rex, you get to cast it, you'll usually win. If we see his journey through the draft, it looks like he settled into green-white quite early on. Like, this Mishra was maybe the last card he took that wasn't either in that lane or just speculating slightly. Wasn't on the wheel.
Wow. Very early, it seems like. Or I could be crazy, but it'd be interesting to see what his Pack 2 pick 1 was, because Shoot Down as your first pick there is quite interesting.
It looks like he took it over. I mean, Exile creature with flying can do a lot. It looks like he took it. He did get the Lay Down Arms back, I believe. So, which is the other card, I think, if you're white-green, that you would look at here.
Right.
And I don't see anything else in the pack that I would go crazy over. Like Scrapper Granger is a good card, but I think we saw in its set. It's not a great card. It's only a very good card. Power Stone Fracture maybe same sort of evaluation.
Right. Yep. Makes
Right.
sense.
Let's move on to our good friend Sawyer, who, if we look at his deck, wound up in pretty much straight red-black. He wound up with
Yeah,
the
and I think
Torga.
you said that quite early, correct?
I don't remember, but it looks like, just looking at his cards, he's been there for a bit, yeah. I might have said he was on the Steel and Sack deck, which it does not look like he wound up in. I don't see a single... Okay, there's Awaken the Sleeper and Tentative Connection. So there's 2 Steel cards. He does like to do that. I don't see any others. Yeah, not even in the sideboard. So he might be doing that, he might not. He might try and Companion Garuda. Like, is this possible? He's got 8-6, 4-2. He's got a lot of 1s, a lot of disfigures. He's got a lot of 3s. Garuda's a tricky one to companion. I think he could make it work if he really wanted to, but he'd have to play some like very mid cards like your Turret Ogre or whatever. So he might not want to. We will see where he goes with this. Sawyer usually tends to the more responsible approaches rather than going for the upside of Companion Garuda. If you look at his journey through the draft...
fair... Okay, no, actually, no. You're missing Inscription and 2 very solid rules. I think it would be very difficult to not play those cards.
What was the other one you said?
2 also odd 3-mana removals. One is Obnixlus's Cruelty, and I think the other one is Open Fire that he would be missing quite dearly.
Yeah, you're right. He doesn't have... He's got a Cast Down, but outside of that, not much in the way of lightning strikes or other sort of even mana costed removal.
Yeah.
Next up, we can go to Dan, the other white drafter at the table. White being, I think, the least drafted color, only drafted by 2 players. It looks like red, the most drafted color, blue and green and black sort of in between.
Yeah.
Dan's a man with a plan. He is the beatdown bringer in name, not just in name only today, because he is trying to kill some people with this deck. Let's take a look at the creature curve here. Not much in terms of 1-drops, but let's look at the 2-drops here. 2 Ambush Paratroopers, great card. Countless Gear Renegade, okay. Drannith Healer, Hawk jumps your thing. Gust Walker kills people. Mandible Justicar might not make the deck. Outcatcher's Avenger kills people. Powerstone Engineer might not make the deck. Aether Chaser, great card, kills people. Prismite might not make the deck. This is just a vanilla 3-2, but you might play it. And now we're into the removal. We've got Pacifism, great. And then a bunch of ways to blow out double blocks or just save your attackers and an Abrade. And this is your Shelter to get through for the last damage. Okay, I see. The Banalish Marshal is an early pick, I think. Never mind, is a late pick. Oh, that's a funny back-to-back.
Yeah.
It looks like he's skewed more to white than to red.
I'm not sure about Savai being just a vanilla 3-2. I think that there's going to be spots where it could be picked up and could be
So what's he got that cycles? He's got Drannith Healer. He's got Renewed Faith, which I don't think is going to make the deck. He's got the Crystal, which might, but I doubt it.
Doubtful.
The Eternalize on this will trigger Savai Thundermane because you're discarding a card as part of the cost. Pursue Glory could make the deck. It's not 0. Yeah, it's not 0. It's not going to be... I think it will happen at least once or twice in the course of his Megadraft. I just don't think he can rely on it. Cub Warden, great card.
Great card.
This card, just you go 2-3 Cub Warden, they're in some serious trouble. Nice, he's got a few bodies that make more bodies. In Propeller Pioneer, Chimney Rabble, Scrapper Cohort. And then
the unfortunate thing is that it doesn't seem like he has a whole lot of small flyers that necessarily are good for Cub Wardening. I guess Eddy Trail Hawk.
Eddy Trail Hawk is one. Gust Walker is one.
No, non-human.
Yeah, no, you're right. Good point. That's true. He has a lot of humans. That might
A lot
He's
of
got
human
a lot of
flyers.
humans. Like half his creatures look like they're humans. Maybe more even. Yeah, that might hit hard for the mutate. Um,
It
Funnily
probably
enough,
won't be too bad
you can put
because
this on Scrapwork cohort or the token.
or
It isn't
servos.
or servos, yeah, because they didn't say non-artifact, they just said non-human. So
Hmm.
as weird as the biomechanics of a mutated servo must be, it can happen. That's the power of Ikoria for you. I wonder what it was, because it started out drafting some blue cards, right? When did he make the swap? It looks like getting this pick for like cohort into. It looks like it looks like he thinks he's staying open with like red and blue, and then he gets this
Yeah,
Vanguard and cohort, and then he's just off to
and
the
from then
races.
on,
Two ambush
yeah,
paratrooper. Yeah, getting ambush paratrooper pick 6 and pick 8. That's a strong signal. Um,
hmm
and I think he just
fantastic card.
listened to it, and he's got what looks like a scary deck. Let's move on to
I am
Pure Mark.
curious
Sorry, go ahead.
how does that work with crawling barons?
How does what work with
The
Crawling Barons?
the mutate
Let's check out Crawling Barons.
until end of turn, it's still land. You put the cub on top.
Does it just stay a creature?
I think this is a question for Steve
My inclination
and
is it does
Adam.
stay a creature. I'm going to look this up.
Yeah, Adam says it stays a creature, and so that could be a little funny.
Interesting.
So yeah, moving on to Pierre Marc, I guess.
Yeah, let's move on. I wonder if that'll come up. Pure Mark is in blue green, and what's he done with that color pair? It looks like he's got a bunch of ramp cards to start with. So three
Yeah.
1-drop accelerants. Ovia Pashiri, Sage Lifecrafter. Great way to sink all your mana into something.
This is kicker the deck. It seems like.
Surge Engine, that's a good mana sink. Merfolk Skydiver, yeah, 5 mana. It's his mana sink dot deck in a lot of ways. It's got a
Three
lot of
cunning
card
geyser
draw.
mages.
This card does powerful things. I don't know if they do anything with these cards, but it does powerful things.
There's a
just lot of
skydiver. There's even a little bit of. Does infectious bite give poison counter?
Which one is Infectious Bite?
I'm gonna look it up. Yes, each opponent gets a poison counter, so we might even see a poison
That would
poison
be a
death
lot of.
with enough.
That'd be
trade.
45 mana he'd need to sink into the Skydiver, which isn't impossible, but would be a lot.
Oh, I mean, Sage also
Oh, that's true.
proliferates on landfall. Yeah.
Time of Ice, always
Yep.
a nice little roadblock for aggro. Awakening of Utagazi, that's a scary card. Hawking Metamorph is cute. I don't know what it wants to copy the most. Like if you make a 4 mana 3/3, Drag a Vision.
Draw a card.
Yeah. This seems more fair than anything else. So I think he's got a lot of ways to win the long game, and he's just got to not die to aggro. Like Pure Mark, I think, is going to be one of the more matchup dependent decks.
Yeah.
I think he might have to dodge Dan, for instance. But I think in a game versus like people on the black green grindy deck, I think this deck would have would go over the top. I think in the average game. And let's finish up with our good friend Richard Koffler, who is just drafting blue-red. It looks like when did he cut the... He cut the black substantially earlier on than Jordan did. If we compare the pick summary here, the last black card really chosen was like this pack 1 Tyrant Scorn, whereas Jordan was taking black cards until pack 4. So what has that done for Koffler, the earlier committal? Well, that's made what to me just looks like a better version of the blue-red deck. Just calling it before looking at everything. But
right.
if we see, for instance, some of these payoffs, Vindictive Flamestoker, a great way to refill your hand at rare. Adeliz, Depends how many wizards there are. I don't know off the top of my head, to be honest, but can kill them if there are other wizards.
There's the Master Wizard, Geyser Mage, Chronicler,
Zephyr Sentinel
Arcanist.
is lovely. This card is just so good. Dual Mage's Domination is nice. Lord Dracus is cute. I think more cute than super powerful, but definitely cute. Like, late game, you can get back your Boon of the Wishgiver or something.
Or
Combat
Enter.
Celebrant. Hercule. This might have been what set him down that path, is Miranda passing him this Hercule early on. Like, I think we mentioned you wanted this in your spells deck, and if it sticks, it's going to draw him a card every turn, most likely.
My eye is also drawn to his Sphinxes. Like, he's got decent ways to close out the game.
Oh, yeah. Like a lot of flyers.
Towards the middle.
Look at Rescuer
middle of the
Sphinx,
game.
then look at Zephyr Sentinel. They're like the same cards,
Mhm.
just you pay 2 mana for 1 more power and toughness.
Yeah.
Zephyr Sentinel can only return creatures. Interesting. And you only get the counter if it was a soldier. Okay, that's a bit more fair. Koth is just a banger. This might just be the strongest card here. The Tybalt is more of a fair walker, right? It can't uptick, but Koth just does. It comes down, kills a thing, and then starts drawing you mountains and then killing more things. Gust of Wind.
I have to say, I find a lot of these decks to be very solid, quite impressive. None of them really stand out as one that's like, oh man, this seems particularly like the Boogeyman. It just, I think, goes to show the strength and the ability of our top-8 Megadraft. Also, at the fact that they are drafting 8 packs. But, we can just compliment them instead.
Every deck is going to be certainly functional, and I think every deck is going to have matchups where it's favored. It's going to be very matchup dependent. I would say the 2 that look like potential outliers to me are Dan's deck. I think is going to have a very good shout and very good odds in most game 1s, and then it's going to depend on how well people sideboard against 15 2-drops. And I think Koffler's deck, just on quality, I think is quite strong.
I think for me, if I would give a slight preference for, I think Koffler, as you mentioned, Paul, with some of the rares that he ended up.
Like this card here, Like I would have all of the individual cards we've seen. This one might be the most unbeatable.
And honestly,
except for the White Suns is also in this deck as well, right? So
yes, the White Suns
straight up bombs. For straight up bombs, if he can cast them, Paul might have Koffler beat. But his deck is going to be a bit funkier with its mana than Koffler's straight up 2-color deck. So we'll see how both of those strategies work out for people. And it looks like the time I announced for the start of the match is upon us. So I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm going to see if I can wrangle up our 2 players to play the feature match.
Amazing.